We always ask questions. What is it that actually exists? Where does the origin come from? Where are we headed to in the end? If you feel confused, just reload your gun.
At number 1, and actually there's a good chance you might be familiar with this one already from last year, we have something that used to go by the name Project Magnum from the South Korean developers called Nixon, but just in case, here with us today, the retitled game now called The First Descendant. This is a free-to-play science fiction co-op shooter and one that's made with the use of Unreal Engine 5. Check it out, the game's on its way to PCs and other consoles as well, September 28th this year. Coming up behind that, we have from a couple of weeks ago and from the fine folks at Newverse, a new game called Earth Revival, a science fiction based open world survival multiplayer, but also a single player game that actually takes place on a destroyed version of Earth from the 2012 incident that, well, technically didn't really happen. This is how the game really works. It is now on its way to PCs only at the moment and set to be released by the end of 2023. At number 3, and honestly I don't really understand why we still don't have a confirmed release date for this one, but nonetheless, we have a new trailer for Atomic Heart and it's about 3 to 4 minutes of in-game footage this time around. It is actually said that this is finished product gameplay and that it is releasing by the end of 2022. Atomic Heart, for those of you who are new, is a first-person obvious shooter and set in a different scenario where the USS has taken over the World War II using technology. Moving on, we have Glacier from last month as an action-adventure game that takes place on a glacier-covered Earth about 65 million years into the future from now, and well, technically you play as some new species, evolved something from birds or fish, I don't know, and I believe in some post-apocalyptic science fiction something version of Earth, and we'll basically get to survive mainly. The game's on its way to PCs only and set to be released by the end of 2022.
Didn't expect your visit. Otherwise, I would have cleaned up the place. So, you come to hear the legend of the Ulukai.
Those of you been patiently waiting, guys. See, Outcast 2, you might want to know, THQ is actually gonna be holding an online showcase pretty soon. And according to which, Outcast 2 in your beginning is gonna come out with a release date, finally. The game is, for those of you new, some cold classic, award-winning open world adventure and set on an alien planet, and this time around, actually 20 years after the events taking place of the first game.
Unseen for 1,000 cycles. And awaken their powerful mystery. Nazolka, Amanor, Nika!
Oh, that's more like it.
His weapons were as much a part of him as your fingers, my toes. His aim was razor sharp. Shield unbreakable. But as Mar used to tell him, fighting is half the battle. When saving a planet, Mar knows that a true hero must also gain the trust of its people.
We observed and explored, but found nothing. Until now.
Moving on by Mad Hit Studios over here, we just got ourselves a new trailer for that little upcoming third-person action-adventure from last year going by Scars Above, which is supposedly, and I've just learned about this one myself, revolving around this alien structure that has appeared in our orbits and now affecting everything. And this is where you come in and you play the role of a scientist who is supposed to just figure things out. The game's set to be released by the end of 2022 for PCs and consoles as well.
Power supply failing!
Sensors offline!
I'm switching to backup generators.
Coming up behind that, and this has been going around for a month now, in case you missed it, Nacon announced development of a survival game based on the Terminator franchise going by the name Terminator Survival Project, which is supposedly an open world game but a survival style, and actually described as the first survival game set in the Terminator universe, obviously. Well, check it out. Terminator Survival Project is set for release for PCs and consoles as well next generation and not in the distant future.
Nothing like this. We call it the miasma.
505, on the other hand, the publishers went on and just released a new trailer for Miasma Chronicles, a tactics-based adventure game that was first shown at the Game Awards last year, technically from the same developers of Mutant Year Zero, hence the resemblance, or at least in terms of aesthetic. That said, the game is on its way to PCs and the next generation of consoles only, sometime next year.
Our fate rests in this guy's glove. Elvis.
Barely survived that one.
A mechanic with big dreams of becoming a hero. If he can only get his act together. Gigs.
God damn, I'm good.
A kind of big brother to Elvis. And a ruthless robot that loves to make things go boom.
Should you boys be out here alone?
Get that door closed now, Private. Close that gate. Nothing gets in here. Ray didn't make it.
Releases of One Piece.
At number 9, well, technically revealed at the Summer Game Festival earlier this year, we just came across a brand new Alien game named Dark Descent. This is a single-player squad-based action shooter, probably a co-op game, and one with a single-player campaign as well. Well, here's technically more of a cinematic trailer they came up with, and the news that the game arrives on the PlayStation 5, 4, Xbox consoles as well, and PCs sometime next year.
What the?
This wasn't human.
Retreat! Retreat! Willis! Open fire! Go! 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 Alvarez! Through that door! Hold that door, Sergeant! Son of a...
At number 10, we have, on the other hand, once again by Capcom, a brand new online game going by the name Exoprimal. Now, this is not technically a newly announced game, it was actually announced early 2020, and something that's touted as a co-op, drop-in-drop-out 5-player shooter where you get to go against dinosaurs hunting them. And as you could tell, well, inspired by a lot of Muso-style games. Exoprimal is, as of this moment, due for release early to mid next year. It is going to be released for consoles, all consoles in addition to PCs except Switch, and this is how it really works.
The most brilliant scientific minds of our time work to ensure our species can endure our upcoming challenges. Whether it's nuclear devastation or the inhospitable surface of a newly settled exoplanet.
Moving on, we've got something called Evaringtion by Spikewave Games. I would assume you'd be familiar with if you've already heard about Sony's China Hero project from earlier this year, because this is a stealth action game inspired by the Metal Gear and some Watch Dogs, actually announced a few years ago. The game's been through some sort of development problem, but thankfully, it is now back on track and on its feet and said to be coming out to PCs and PlayStation consoles only early to mid next year.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about.
Coming up behind that, well, first off, just in case you haven't heard it, Starfield came our way once again and with a lot of gameplay showcase earlier this year. That will be in 4K resolution in case you haven't seen it yet. Starfield is an open world role-playing game. It is probably the biggest video game in development as I'm speaking. Some of you might remember the game was supposed to be released November this year, but then it got delayed to early next year. It is a Microsoft exclusive, meaning it's coming to PCs and Xbox consoles only, and Bethesda describes it as the biggest gaming project that they have ever developed since the beginning.
The artifact you found appears to be one of many, scattered across the galaxy. If we can find more, we can unlock their secrets.
Beautiful, isn't it?
The man who sold me this told me that it spoke to him.
Of course, the settled systems is full of groups with other priorities.
That's the Crimson Fleet! Everybody get ready!
The fleet doesn't follow the rules. Agree to work for UCC staff. Together, we take down these cutthroat pirates.
We're not just here to shoot the bad guys. We're peacekeepers. We protect the people of the Free Star Collective.
When you sign up with the Crimson Fleet, no one quits. The only way out is death.
Remember, recruit, you're part of the Triple O now, under the wings of the mightiest fleet the galaxy has ever seen. But here, within the Twin Planet system, you're on your own.
Moving on, we have Hubris, our only virtual reality game today, a first-person shooter that has this episodic structure. First of them, so to speak, came out a few months ago and has been sitting on Steam as a free-to-play game ever since. Now, have much to talk about with this one, because I haven't played it yet. I just know that the game is visually pretty good, and that the full game is set to be coming out in about a few months from now.
Still alive.
Fear is the mind killer.
At 14 by Funcom, which is, just so you get a better idea here guys, the same publisher who did come up with the first Dune game more than 30 years back. We have here with us today also a brand new open world survival MMO, something called Dune Awakening. Take a look at the short trailer, which is mostly cinematic. The game's set to be coming to consoles and PCs, and a release date for it is still yet to be announced.
I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing.
As you're going to be here for a very long time. I need you to take control of my remote wardens and scout the depths of the abyss.
Coming up behind that, we have something called Lunar Abyss from earlier this year, which is a narrative-driven action-adventure, first-person shooter, and with horror game elements, technically revolving around the discovery of this pretty vast colony under the depth of some moon of another planet. Here's the thing, developers of which said, and I quote, "If you do fancy a bullet-hell shooter kind of game with some cosmic horror thrown into the mix, this will be the one for you. The game's on its way to PCs in the next generation of consoles only, and due out mid to late 2023.
Oh, and I almost forgot to introduce myself. My name is Aylin, and I'll be watching you.
What the hell happened here?
This is Kathy. Please come in. Mission Opera has only one objective.
Bring the Arks and their revolutionary technology back home.
Moving on, and by the same folks behind the old 2018 game Deliver Us the Moon, we have here a new game in the making ever since, going by Deliver Us Mars now, and it's going to be on its way to consoles and PCs February 2nd next year. The game was actually supposed to be released next month, just went on and got itself a delay, huge one, and finally releasing for all platforms except Switch. Check it out. To accompany the update, the fine folks also came out with this.
I know I can do this.
How does it come to this? Having good intentions isn't hard, Kathy. The hard part is knowing the difference between what's right and what's wrong. We have to leave. I will not risk the success of this mission.
At number 17, we have over here once again a new trailer for a game called Forever Skies, which is now on its way to an early access phase in about a month from now, we hear, and on Steam you can also wishlist the game in case you're pumped for it already. Now Forever Skies, for those of you new, is a first person, as you can see, post-apocalyptic survival shooter in which you'll be in charge of an airship with which you'd basically travel through Earth. Check it out, this is how the game will eventually look like.
Their lies intoxicated you. You burned our homes and slaughtered our families. No longer am I frozen in terror, grief, and rage.
Hell Is Us, on the other hand, by Nacon, with the same folks that are now doing the old Lord of the Rings Golem. Actually, we have us from earlier this year, a title that's described as a third-person action-adventure built using Unreal Engine 5 and a Souls-like, mostly hack-and-slasher. This is the game's debut trailer. It is set to be coming to PCs in the next generation of consoles only, and by the end of 2023.
I'm gonna shoot you right down, right off of your feet.
Moving on, we have Synced Off Planet, once again by Nick Studios, that was last aired with a new gameplay just a few months ago to keep up the hype, obviously, and introduce more of its story. Now, just in case you missed out on, the game is releasing around holidays this year and on its way to PCs only, and it is, as you could probably tell, a companion-based shooter with player versus environment components, in addition to having a few battle royale modes as well.
And see the galaxy. I wanted to go somewhere, see new worlds, look up at a sky no one's ever seen before.
And last but not least, we have once again Star Trek Resurgence from only a couple of months ago, back when the game was actually described to be a choice-based adventure and a lot like a Telltale game this time around. And well, supposedly, unlike Telltale games, Resurgence will be a single title and not have an episodic structure to it. Here's the trailer. Resurgence will now launch mid to late 2023 for PCs, PlayStation and Xbox consoles as well.
Yara, I need you to do the right thing.
The fate of the negotiations, the interests of the Federation, and the prospect for peace may very well depend on it.